everybody. Hi, it's Becky from PowerToolsWithThread.com. That's my blog. I found the coolest place. Where am I?
We're at Bold Notion Quilting.
Well, I know we're at Bold Notion Quilting. Where is Bold Notion Quilting?
We are in Brooksville, Florida, which is about an hour north of Tampa on the West Coast.
Brooksville, Florida. And this is Lauren Jackson. And Lauren, it is just such a pleasure to meet you. As many of you know, I have a long arm, and it is my second one. And my first one that I had, when I first got it, I was looking for education on long arm quilting. And so, of course, we had Angela Walters was out on the internet, right? And there was a bunch of long armers out there, but I found you. So you're one of the people who we didn't have the same kind of machine, but you were one of the first people to say, here's how you do this, here's how it goes. And you actually ended up getting into making classes, right? Doing classes.
I did. I found when I first started long arm quilting that the shop that I was teaching at had nowhere around to teach them. People would come in from hours and hours away just to come learn. So I started putting little tidbits on Facebook and YouTube and all of the things. So it was something that felt like it needed to be done because there was nobody out there that was teaching this. And this was like, 7 years ago, which doesn't feel that long, but that long ago, you really could only get that kind of information from books if you could find them online or from a shop. Yep, that's why we started teaching online.
That's great. And there's so many of us, especially during the pandemic, where you couldn't go anywhere to learn about and if you haven't figured it out, this video is for the longarmers who watch me. So the rest of y'all just, get a cup or do some stitching or something and just kind of listen in. But if you're thinking about learning how to long arm, or you're interested and you think you may one day want to get a long arm, and you might think you don't have the space, you might consider the Grace Cutie frame that you can put a domestic machine with, so you can long arm too. And what she's talking about here in this video can actually apply to that. That you can still learn how to do ruler work. You can still learn how to do the little pebbles and the waves, and you can still learn how to do all of those things watching your videos, even though you don't have one of those great big long arm machines. So
I think one of the biggest misconceptions when people are trying to learn free motion quilting online is, oh, I can only learn from a long arm quilter, or I can only learn from a sit down quilter, because that's the kind of machine that I have. And while there is great benefit to learning from someone who is showing you on the kind of machine that you have, for me, free motion quilting is a language. It's learning your own handwriting. You're learning how to write that language. So, you're going to learn how to follow the pebbles and the feathers and everything in a lot of the same ways, and you're going to follow the same thread bath. The big differences between a long arm quilter and a sit down quilter is that sit down quilters have to wrangle that quilt, right? So they got to practice how they move their body and do different things. Whereas the long arm quilters have to learn how to control that machine because it's so free floating on the frame. So whether you're a sit down quilter or a long arm quilter, I really encourage you to watch anybody's video online, because if the way that they teach speaks to you, it makes the biggest difference. And for me, I'm a why learner. So as I'm teaching people, I want to teach them, okay, you do this because, and so you can see how it will impact all of your quilting and everything going forward. And you can put it on other projects that aren't just the one we're working on.
Right, that's the greatest thing. I did the same thing. I learned how to machine embroider, and then I was like, well, I think I can apply, even though this is just a single needle, what I learned on, I can apply that to the 10 needle, because they basically function the same. They basically do the same thing. And the things that I learned on my long arm, I certainly did apply that to the new machine that I have now. And I'm just kind of figuring that all out, because it's all basically the same thing. And we talked about something really cool right before we did this, before we started shooting, was you said you have to give yourself permission to do something that is not what everybody thinks you should be doing.
Yeah, not your typical, because we all get stuck in our little boxes and our ways of how we do everything.
Right.
And you just be shocked how many people are like, well, this is the way you're supposed to do it. Okay, but why can't we try something new?
Exactly.
Which is kind of how I approach all of my online classes on boldnotionquilting.com. And we do a lot of, free motion quilting. Okay, if you do this, this is what happens. Or what if we try this? Let's see. I don't know. And a lot of people will say, hey, on your classes, I love that you don't make everything perfect. You just try it. If it messes up, okay, let's try something else.
Right.
And going through that trial and error is what makes all the difference.
But that's how you learn.
Yes.
That's exactly how you learn. I would not know what I know now had I not messed up a lot.
A lot. A lot. Yeah.
Yeah. You are here in Florida, and you guys, this house, so her husband is still, he's Coast Guard, right?
Correct. He's in the military.
He's in the military, and she used to live like right down the road from me in Corpus Christi, Texas. Of course, in Texas is ginormous state, so when I say right down the road, I mean 2.5 hours.
Yeah, which really isn't that far in Texas.
It's not.
It's really
it's
not.
It's not. I know up in the Northeast, you drive 2.5 hours, you've crossed 3 states.
Yeah.
In Texas, we just went from San Antonio to Corpus Christi. Right?
Yeah, and I can literally get all the way across Florida in 2.5 hours from here. So
right.
Texas is huge.
When I was setting up to come here, she said, "I'm like an hour and 15 minutes away from Tampa," and I said, "So, what's the big deal?" Used to driving that, not a big deal. So he's still there, and you're here, and you told me the coolest story about how you got this house, because we are in a room that is holding 4 or 5 long arms.
It's 3 long arms, and I've got my little sit-down quilter, George.
4. So 4, yeah, 3 long arms and a sit-down, so 4 long arm machines, and on different platforms.
And I say little, but he's like 22 inches.
Hey,
so
he's
not
big.
little.
I see him over there. He's pretty big, little APQS. Because you are an APQS dealer, yes?
I am.
Okay.
Yep. I am also the APQS certified technician for the state too. So I work on the machines and travel and do all that stuff as well.
Oh, you do travel for APQS repairs and whatnot?
I do.
Fabulous.
Yep.
That's good.
And for sales and setup and all the things.
Awesome. Awesome. So tell me, share the story of how you came across this house that has a room large enough to handle all of this.
Yeah, so the way that this shop is set up is really cool, and it's always been kind of my dream to have my business on my property, because it's all about, you know, investing in the future for yourself and for your kids, and this makes the most sense. So with him being in the Coast Guard, we moved 12 times in 14 years for various reasons.
Right.
Sometimes, you know, it was apartment to apartment or whatever, but we've moved so many times that we ended up in Rockledge just by happenstance. Like it was a God thing.
Where's Rockledge?
It's right across the state, and it's about 15 minutes south of Cocoa, so it's on the East Coast.
Okay.
And we moved from Cleveland to Florida, and I had sold my previous longarm machine. I knew I wanted to get an APQS machine because of, you know, all the different features that appeal to me. And after about a year of having the machine, I wanted to sell them. And I actually bought the machine from the lady who owned this house before. She actually sold APQS machines.
So you bought your machine from the dealer who lived right here.
Right here.
Okay, so you had been in here before?
Yeah, and I remember driving up thinking, oh, this is cute. Someday I'll have a house like this. And it just ended up being that once I became a rep, she and I would go to different quilt shows and stuff together. Right. And so, you know, we became close. We talked about the house and different things. And we ended up moving to Texas from Florida. My husband got a special duty assignment. He's a recruiter now.
Okay.
And so he's, you know, in Texas. And so we ended up having the craziest debacle being in Texas with all the different things that went wrong with the house, buying at the peak of COVID, not being able to see the house for yourself, and not having the time to digest it, and relying on the information of everybody else, and we hated it so much. And my friend's like, Lauren, I just wanted to call and tell you, I know you're having such a hard time with your house in Texas, but we did finally decide to sell. And so many times over the years I've told her, you have a fire pit? I'm definitely buying your house. You got a pool too? I'm buying your house. And it was just this running joke that we've had forever.
Right.
But the moment that she said that to me, I was like, I'm buying your house.
Yes.
Because I know that she's been taking care of it, and you know, she takes pride in her property, and it was, you know, pretty new, and I was like, man, this thing could fit my quilt shop. It'd be amazing.
But it's perfect. It is perfect. And it's so funny. She just told me, she's like, it's already too small.
It is too small. And it's only because I have big ambitions. I love to teach. That's my favorite thing to do.
Me too.
And so
Me too.
My goal is to have a space that appeals to the long arm quilters and the piecers. We've got fabrics and all the different things, but I want to have a space where I have a big classroom where I can teach gaggles of long arm quilters. Like I'd love to have
a show.
Yeah. I'd love to have people here on 6 or 8 different long arms, and we can just roll up our sleeves and learn the nitty-gritty of what it is to do.
Right.
And so that is my overall goal. And my husband's not on board yet with putting a new building on the property, but I'll get there.
I know you will.
I'll get there.
I know you will. She seems to get, when she's got a goal in her mind, she just laser focused.
I think that that's a huge thing that people would love to do.
I think so too. I know as soon as, like at the show in Houston and everything, because I go to the show for the last 3 years. I have been doing demos in the Brother booth with all brands at the Houston Quilt Show. And the moment the classes are open, especially for Longarmers, they fill up immediately because they want to learn. People are hungry to learn, and they're willing to fly, stay in a hotel. Cost of the class does not matter. They want to learn this because when you invest that much money into a tool, you want to know how to use it.
And other than the quilt shows, like there's not a whole lot of places that you can go unless shops like mine are holding like long arm boot camps, right? And then you can go for a couple of days to maximize the time and the money and the effort that you're putting in to what it is that you're learning.
Right.
So that's a big reason why I started
definitely
mine.
do. I mean, I had gone on, this is before I knew I could not long arm by myself. I knew I didn't.
Yes, you can.
She keeps telling me that, and she doesn't know me because she doesn't watch my channel. So she had told me that on the phone. I'm like, okay, yeah, got you. So before I knew I could not free motion quilt, then I had taken a weekend, Claudia File. Yes. World famous quilter.
Quilter extraordinaire.
Quilter extraordinaire.
Yes.
Claudia File was going to be at a quilt shop in Austin. Okay, and so I told my husband, oh, they're going to do these classes and I want to go because I've got this machine and I don't know how to use it and blah, blah, blah. And he said, okay, go ahead. And so I went up there for a weekend. So I spent the money. I made the trip, not far from San Antonio to Austin. Got a hotel, got in the class, did everything. 2 days where she was phenomenal. She was great. And as I was watching her teach, I just began to realize this is really not something that you can learn over Zoom. You get an idea. You get an idea. But there's so much that you miss when you're not in person with the instructor. And there is a dearth. There is a void out there for long arm instruction that is one-on-one. And I'll tell you, I equate it to that baseball movie and where they say, if you build it, they will come. And that is true. That is absolutely true. So her shop here, again, her shop is Bold Notion Quilting, and I will link to her site below, boldnotionquilting.com. You and I are very much alike.
I think so.
We're a lot alike, and we discovered that we're both brats. And if you are a child in a military family, you're called a brat. I'm an Air Force brat. You're a Navy brat.
24 years, my dad.
Yep, my dad was in 20, and then I went in the military as well and did 20, and then 17 years civil service. So 37 years federal service. Yeah, I know. I tell people I was born with an ID card. Literally, I was.
I know. It's funny you say that because I went right from being under my dad's care to being married, and I was like, I literally have been, with military AD my whole life.
Yep, it's true, and that you're comfortable with it. A lot of people feel strange marrying somebody in the military, but for those of us where our parents were in, it's like, whatever.
I don't know any other way. This is my life.
I was telling somebody yesterday at Inspire Quilting and Sewing in Plant City, when I drive on a base, as soon as I get through the gate, I feel like I'm home.
Yeah.
And then you see the commissary and I'm like, I got this. I know how all this works.
Yes, it feels very familiar.
It does. And it doesn't matter where it is in the world.
Yep.
It's all, you know the rules and you get it, and it's great.
For the 14 years that I've been married to my husband, I worked with the Target Corporation retail, and I was a manager, and I was fortunate that I was able to get a transfer everywhere we went. But because I was able to work in the same place, even though we moved so many times and I was able to get so many transfers, I still had that, solid footing that this is my home. This is what I know. This is what's normal to me. So I totally get that.
And we've even said some of the same things like, well, how hard can that be? When we come across something that's new to us in our craft, we go, how hard can that be, right?
Yeah.
And then you just dive in, and that goes along with think outside the box, break those rules that we're put in place by I don't know who, try it. Just try it. You guys that have ScanNCuts that are still in the box, take it out, set it on a table, plug it in, turn it on, just look at it. Just get familiar with it. Your embroidery machines, just turn it on, kind of poke around on the buttons, you won't break it. Try it. You got a long arm and you're terrified of it, just move it up and down. Don't, just give it a try. It's no big deal.
I like to tell people, especially because I'm a service technician for APQS, like, there's not a whole lot you can do to this thing that we can't fix.
That's right.
So even if what's the worst case scenario? You're going to break it.
Big
even
deal.
if you break it, there's a way to fix it.
That's
you know,
right.
and a lot of times you can fix it for not too much cost. So you don't have to be too terrified about, what's going to happen to your machine, but you're never going to get used to it and get comfortable with it and dive into those things that make you feel more creatively fulfilled if you don't just start. You just have to start. That is the thing. You just need to start and start somewhere.
Let's talk about what you've got here in the store. You've got some pre-cuts like fat quarter bundles and whatnot, but you cater mostly to longarmers.
Yeah. So when I was first getting into my long arm quilting journey and sewing in general, because they kind of happened at the same time. When I first started getting into that, I noticed that I'd walk into the big quilt shop near me, right? And I wanted a ruler for quilting, or I wanted thread. I'd go in, they'd have 5 colors of glide. Right? So those 5 colors aren't what I need. I need a selection, right? I need a selection of tools. I need a selection of classes and techniques. And so that's what I try to give people. So I would say that Bold Notion Quilting, in person and online, I mean, we mainly cater to long arm quilters. We've got over 300 different colors of glide thread, which I love my beautiful rainbow wall. And then we've got all kinds of rulers and different tools and stuff that you need to use them. And because most of the rulers that I sell are proprietary to me, and I've got my Bold Notion Quilting YouTube channel, I show them how to use them, because what good are tools if you don't understand how to use them?
Right.
So yeah, we mainly cater to long arm quilters, and we rent out time on the long arms and stuff here, and we do classes and different things. So for me, long arming is my passion, but we do have all the other things so that when people come in with their friends, they can shop fabrics and different things as well. I even have a beautiful grunge color wall all the way over 200 different colors.
You guys, she's got
bobbins by the gag load.
Magna Glide Delights 40 weight bobbins, pre-made.
Yep, in L's and M's, and we have every color available, because for me,
Fabulous.
it's all about selection. I want just that right shade so that when I'm quilting, I know that everything's gonna match. And I'm sure as an embroiderer too, like, you gotta have just the right color.
Right.
This peach might be close enough, but that peach is a lot closer to what I need.
So do I need to have a great big long arm in order to be able to use your rulers?
No, so my rulers are made, they're 1/4 inch thick. So as long as you have a medium to high shank machine, whether it's a sit down quilter, whether it's something like George, a quilting machine in a frame or in the table, you should be able to use the rulers with ease. I do have a couple that I have that are low shank as well, like my main circle border buddy and my straight edge, that are low shank that you can use on a domestic that has a low shank, but for the most part, most machines are medium to high shank anyway nowadays.
Right.
So they'll work on any of those machines.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. So I like glide. I use it in the embroidery machine sometimes. So this is almost like an embroidery thread, right?
I'm very anti put something in a box, because people are like, oh, that's embroidery. You can't. It's shiny. You can't use it. And I'm very anti-cotton. So, which people are cotton purists, but for me, I want to use something that's soft and strong, is going to stand the test of time, and it's not going to break down and have problems. So this is a 40 weight tri-lobe polyester thread that is made for high speed machine work. Okay. So embroidery, serging, long arm quilting, I use it for piecing, I use it for everything. As long as it's not going in a microwavable bowl, it's fine.
Okay. And for the longest time on my old machine, I had used the embroidery thread on it just out of necessity, because I could not get the thread to stop breaking in my machine. And I know all machines are different and they're picky and whatnot. And even now, then I get from Grace, they send me their thread that they have, and I look at it and it's a poly. And I said, well,
everybody's moving to poly these days.
Everybody's moving to poly. And a lot of people say, well, you'll have shrink difference when you wash it from your cotton to your poly threads, and Y'all, I really haven't noticed that.
Yeah, so I think that people put a lot of rules on everything that we do. So in terms of your fabric shrinking too much, your thread shrinking too much, your batting shrinking too much, it's all very relative. I don't feel like anything shrinks unless you get the wrong kind of wool that's going to shrink up 10 times what it was.
Right.
It's all going to relatively shrink up and relatively work. The hardest thing for me to get around is like with a cotton thread, it has a shelf life.
Right.
So if it has a shelf life, it's got to have a shelf life in my quilt too, right?
That's true.
And that's only one strand of thread that's linked together through your long arm machine to make that chain to make your designs. So in my mind, that's going to be the first thing that deteriorates on my quilt over time.
Right.
Whereas my polyester thread is going to work in harmony even with my cotton fabrics because I've got, what is it, like 120 by 120 woven together to make my actual fabrics themselves. So you're using really densely woven fabric thread counts with something that's stronger. It's going to stand the test of time.
Right.
So that's why I'm a little leery with cotton. Everything has its place. Sometimes you need things that don't have a sheen, but.
So even if you buy clothing and you think you're buying cotton clothing, dollars to donuts, that's got poly thread in it.
Yeah, it's a cotton poly blend.
It has to be. I use cotton poly all the time when I sew. I like that because it's strong thread, and our machines need strong thread. Yeah, I know. You won't see me use cotton thread too often. So, and to me, in my mind, I was like, that thread it breaks, and when you're going, you don't want it to break. You had mentioned something to me on the phone about you liked APQS because it could keep up with how fast you move your machine. Talk to me about that with the technicals of that.
Yeah, so with a long arm style quilting machine, you can have what's called a stitch regulator. Obviously not every machine has one,
right.
But with most machines made nowadays, you have the option of utilizing a stitch regulator. The stitch regulator will ensure that the hook and the needle move in sync to create so many stitches per inch, right? Some of them, they're all measured differently and it's all very technical, but they can only go so many revolutions per minute or per inch, right? So as you're doing it, you can actually, like, I noticed that on my first long arm quilting machine, when I would do my feathers, I was going too fast and you would hear beep as I'm stitching. The alarm's going off, you're going too fast, you're going too fast. So if I'm outperforming my regulator just by doing a feather, what's gonna happen when I start doing other more intricate designs as I'm quilting? So my APQS machine can do up to 3,500 revolutions per minute, which is more than double what my last machine could do, which is amazing. So I never have to worry about if I'm going to outstitch my regulator because I like to stitch lightning fast. And I know so many other people like to stitch lightning fast too, and I'm of the mentality that I want to grow into my tools and my devices. If you're going to spend that much money on a machine, you want to make sure that you're growing into it, not out of it. And I made the mistake of growing out of my first one. Right,
yeah, I totally understand that. And I didn't even think about that when I was thinking about getting a long arm, that is the software and the machine going to be able to keep up with me as I go? And for me, that's not really an option. It wouldn't occur to me to do that because I don't quilt like you do. I quilt like I do, which is tap, 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 make it all fit, hit go, let it run.
Right.
That's me.
So you probably don't have that problem.
Zero.
Yeah. Okay.
Never a thing. She's got some gorgeous quilts hanging in here. And I'm looking at the quilting design she's done where she's got little tiny pebbles and you've got a lot of geometrics and all these things. Quilting like that does not come to me. That even when I look at it, I'm like, oh wow, I would have never thought that to do that and to create the trapunto effect and all. It just, that is not something, that's not how I quilt. That's not how my brain works. But you have got that gift and it's incredible. And when we get done, I'll take the camera off. We will walk around the room and I'll show you her amazing studio here and I'll show you some of the work that she's done. So now, so you do have people in here to quilt if they want. Do you do that?
Yeah, so I do long arm certification, which teaches them all of the ins and outs of how the long arm machine works. And that's where we start first.
So do you rent time on machines if they need it?
I do.
They know what they're doing?
Yeah, so my goal is to create confident quilters that don't need my help. So they can come in, they can rent, pay by the hour. And I only charge like $15 an hour, so it's not crazy. But like I have ladies who come in, I use red snappers, so they get them on there really quick. They're done in 2 hours with a twin quilt. They pay $30 and they're done. Like,
Wow.
it's amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't even send your quilt to a Longarmer for that amount.
No,
So
no.
as long as, you know,
Your
everyone's...
thread's more than that.
Yeah, right, yeah. So as long as everyone's having fun, everyone's safe, and the long arms are working great, they get to learn their skill, they get to finish some utility quilts really quickly.
Right.
You know, everybody wins. So in my mind, I want people to be able to a lot of people want to finish their own projects. They
Yes.
don't want to send it into a long
That's
armor.
why they're doing the edge-to-edge embroidery designs, because they want to finish their own projects.
And free motion isn't an option for everyone.
That's exactly right. It is not an option for everyone. They can come in here, they can rent, and then you also provide quilt finishing services, or are you just teaching? Yeah.
No, I mean, I have computerized systems on my long arms, so when people aren't renting them, I use them to do edge-to-edge quilting for people.
Okay.
I even have a form on boldnotionquilting.com where they can mail them in, just like they would do at Missouri Star Quilt Company or anything else.
Okay, so you take in quilts by mail then?
I do,
Great,
yeah.
great.
And you know, we do that as part of the services that we provide as well, and I love it. It's nice to just kind of be able to get through, you know, 5 or 6 quilts, like, hey, cool, I finished all of these. It's not the same as when you're custom quilting and you're on the same quilt for like 50 hours.
Right. Yeah, for days.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. But do you offer custom quilting?
Currently, I don't offer custom quilting for clients. I've got a list a mile long, and I was booked about 2 years out.
Yeah.
And then I did this Bali wedding star quilt. I don't know if you're familiar with that Judy Niemeyer pattern. It basically looks like a double wedding ring with these really pretty stars in the middle of it. It's like on my bucket list of quilts that I want for myself. I probably will never piece it, but I will pay someone to make it for me maybe. But anyway, I was doing it, and the motion that I have to do with the rulers, with the curve ruler back and forth, I actually got a repetitive use injury in my wrist.
Oh no.
So I canceled all of my custom quilting jobs for the next 2 years. But it's kind of a blessing because I've been telling myself I want to do more with my online classes. I want to do things like, and I'm sure you'll show it later, but my little Freddie Fox quilt. I want to do more artful quilting and fun things that I can teach people on boldnotionquilting.com. So that's going to be my focus for the next couple of years, so that I am very in control of my quilting schedule and I won't over exacerbate myself, because I know myself. If I have quilts on the schedule, that's going to be my priority, not my healing of my wrist.
Right.
So for right now, no, who knows, it's 2022, but you know, I think I'm going to be really happy just focusing more on the classes and the teaching, because that's where my heart's at. That's what I love to do.
And you need to do that. It's when you follow that path, it's like everything just opens up, and you're happy and they're happy. On Bold Notion Quilting, do you offer online classes?
Oh yeah, we've got at least 12 right now. So my whole journey for so it's funny that you said that like I've got that creative gift, because I've never considered myself a creative human. I am a type A personality, Navy brat, do everything right the first time, everything has a box, everything's in its place. And that is how my world works.
That's how we roll.
That's how we roll.
That's exactly right.
So when I got my long arm quilting machine, it was one huge cognitive behavioral therapy experiment. I'm not even kidding you. I would throw fits, I would cry, I would have tantrums. I'd go up the basement and I'd tell my husband, I'm not going back in there and you can't make me. And I would just be so upset, and he would laugh. He would try so hard not to laugh, but he's like, oh my God, you need to like calm down. And I was like, I'll never be able to do this. And I was so frustrated because I spent so much time and money on this thing that I could have bought my husband a new car with, and he needed one.
Right.
And I selfishly bought myself a long arm. I was never going to figure out how to use it. Right. So, you know, for me, like, that has all come as like a learned experience. So I took my first 5 years of free motion quilting, all of the things that I had to learn and unravel, because when you learn on YouTube, which is a fantastic place to learn, but YouTube, Facebook, whatever, you're getting different pieces and parts of the puzzle, and you're not quite sure how or why they all work together.
Yes.
So I broke down my journey into 4 different classes. I've got a free motion quilting mastery class online, tens of hours of content per class. Okay, they're like $80, and it's Free Motion Quilting 101, all the things you need to consider before you even start quilting your quilt, and then 10 introductory free motion quilting designs. Needles, thread, tension, you know, all the things. And then we go into like positive and negative space. How do I break up my quilt? How do I get inspired to quilt it? What do I do? And then Free Motion Quilting 103 is all about ruler work, understanding what you need to know in order to buy them so you don't waste a ton of money buying them. Right. Then how to use all of the markings on them. And then we did a class project, which is the big gray quilt that we have hanging on the wall for the class project. And then I just finished filming my Free Motion Quilting 104 class, which is about taking those first 3 classes and really putting them to work for you. So it's all about kind of piecing that puzzle and getting more into that contemporary custom and complex combinations and doing more of that creative stuff. And most of it is just you know, getting out of your own way, out of your own bias, and just kind of digging in and doing it.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we've got a lot of classes, and then project-based classes that you can do on panels, the Dream Big panel, you know, different things that make it tangible. They're smaller, so you can have a win, do it, learn it, and feel like you've accomplished something.
That's awesome. So if somebody has a top and batting or not, if they just have a top, they can contact you. You have backings. I see 108s in grunge.
Yeah, this whole aisle is 108. I try to really vary up, again, what I have available, because when you walk into a quilt shop, there's not a whole lot there.
Right,
you know?
right. So, but this shop targets longarmers for the most part.
Yeah, we've got 5 different kinds of batting. We've got everything that we need to do long arm quilting for anyone. So if you're like my husband and you love a quilt that's super lightweight, we've got bamboo. You barely even feel it on you. I like wool, or I like supreme cotton, like heavy. I want a big heavy quilt on me. Like I've got all kinds of stuff, you know, if anyone has a quilt that they need finished.
Where did you get Bold Notion?
That's a weird question. It's a weird name. I don't know, honestly. I was going through like what I called my quarter life crisis. I was like 22.
She's a baby, you guys. She's only 34.
Yeah, so I was going through my quarter life crisis, and I thought, well, I have the sewing machine. I'm figuring out how to use it. Maybe I'll start an Etsy store, sell some things. I was struggling because I'm that type A personality. I don't have hobbies. It's not something that I can do. I don't understand the concept of doing something for the sheer joy of it, I guess. I don't know. I tried to have a hobby and it turned into a business. Like, I don't understand it. So it was just one of those things where I really wanted to quit my job. I was having a really hard time with it. I was like, oh, that's a bold notion. And I was like, oh, that'd be an interesting name for a business. So I named my Etsy shop Bold Notion. I think it was just Bold Notion at the time. But then when I decided to do more things with long arm quilting, it turned into Bold Notion Quilting, and I started a business, and I started it up in Ohio, and having to dissolve and start businesses in different states everywhere you go gets a little tiring.
Yes.
But yeah, it's just, that's something that I was really drawn to. And I was like, maybe that's the wrong name. Like maybe that's hard for people to know. But at the same time, it's very unique. So it's good in that way.
Yeah, it's great. It is, and it screams out of the box.
Yeah, well,
I like that.
My whole motto is making quilting easier, one stitch at a time. So it's all about being bold. So in all my videos, you'll see, you know, the Bold Notion intro, and it'll say, be bold.
Be bold,
because you do. And it really does take that sense of, I can do this just for a split second to take you into that next level.
Yes.
And that's like my whole mantra. Just do it. Just go for it. You can.
That's one of the things I love. So I was watching her do her things, and I would try it, and I couldn't do it, and I would try it, and I couldn't do it. And then I was like, I'm going to try this again, and I couldn't do it the third time, and I'm going to go embroider because I can make that work. And then I would come back to it, and it was just so funny when I had heard that. I knew that you moved. I'd seen that on your videos that you had moved, and you still come up in my feed. It's really funny to meet another YouTuber. Before we started shooting, we were talking about all the things that go along with YouTubing. So it's been a great visit to sit here and talk to somebody who's also on that end of the business and understands all of that, of how all this works. Why don't we take the camera off and you take me around the shop?
Sure.
I'd love that. Okay.
Yeah.
You guys ready? Let's do it.
Okay. Hi, so we are small but mighty. It's a tiny little quilt shop. It's like 1,500 square feet. Like I said, we've got a lot that we cater to as far as for the long arm quilters, and we've got just kind of things all over the place. Yeah, so we're working on getting some different samples made to hang up on the bigger parts, because I don't piece a lot. I quilt, and I quilt for myself, so I don't have a lot of time to like make my own things. But like that's just an example of one of the giant Dream Big panels that we did.
Wow, look at that.
Yeah, it's very Zentangle quilted. It was interesting. Took forever to quilt, but I love it. It's one of my favorites.
That's incredible. Look at the quilting on that, you guys.
That one I quilted during my Free Motion Quilting 103 ruler work class online. So I was teaching them how to use their curved rulers to get around those curves and manipulate them to make everything work.
Wow. It's gorgeous, just gorgeous.
Oh, thank you. I call it my Florida quilt. It's very Florida colors, don't you think?
So, the little circles in the first border.
Uh-huh.
Is that free motion?
It is not. That is actually with my Border Buddy quilting ruler, and my Border Buddy rulers are made to work in those 1-inch, 2-inch, 3-inch sashings, and I can show you the rulers when we get over to them, but they're just fantastic because they help you get that perfection that you otherwise would see on computerized quilting.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's very consistent. So, and they're all like scant sizes. So, you know how when we piece, like it can get kind of wavy sometimes, I guess if you piece like me. So those 1-inch borders aren't always exactly 1 inch.
But they should be. No.
If you, if you quilt outside of that 1-inch barrier, you notice it. But if you're just slightly within, you don't as much.
Okay.
Yeah, even just like all kinds of free motion quilting books and different things that you need. We really want to focus on honing those skills. And you'll notice that like the stencils that we carry are all very geometric. I've actually even designed a couple. Like this is one that I designed for full line stencil. And there's a picture of that. I mean, that mandala is quilted up on the wall. I could show you later too. But like all of them are geometric because even with stencils, like they're not a one-trick pony. You can use stencils for so many different things, not just to make this ray or that mandala. You can use portions of it to do all different kinds of things in your quilting.
Explain to me how a stencil works.
So this is, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the Full Line Stencil Company. Love them, they're fantastic. This is actually a fabric. So when you buy traditional stencils like at Joann's or a quilt shop or whatever, and they're plastic,
yes.
When they bend, they're almost not usable because you can't get them to go back unless you stick them on your driveway in a hot day under a mat with a book or whatever, right? So it's difficult to put it back. These are made out of a very fine fabric that where the blue is solid, where the white is a thin mesh that you utilize these little chalk pads to brush the design on. And so if I ship that and it's bent, they almost always bend when you ship them, right?
This is a pounce. This is what she's talking about.
Yep.
And you open up that little cup that you can pull that.
The chalk goes in there.
The chalk goes in there.
And then you open it up and you can swipe it on.
And it has a pad inside.
Yep.
I have one of these. I bought it at the show thinking I was going to be able to stencil.
I do have, you can. I do have a video on my YouTube channel that shows you exactly how to use the stencils and some tips and different things for them as well to get the full line in. But the cool thing about these is you can use an iron on warm setting with no steam, and you can iron the crease right out.
Awesome.
So it doesn't matter how you put, that's why I love these things. So full line stencils are my favorite. If you haven't seen them, you should try them.
And I did learn about red snappers from you, and I bought some and I still use them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They're amazing. They take, I mean, when they say you put your quilt on a snap, you really do. I went from spending an hour and a half pinning a queen size quilt to my Longarmer machine to 10 minutes with my red snappers, which are amazing.
Right. So you're a deal. You've got those in stock. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep, I almost always have them in stock, and if they happen to not be, they're usually in within a day or so. I've got a whole video on how to install these as well, so like how they go together, and then also how you use them to load. So that, again, I don't like to talk about anything that people don't have support and know how to use the tools that it is that they're trying to use.
Right.
So, yep, we sell bobbins by the bulk, and then also it seemed silly at first, but you can get what would be in a bulk box by the bobbin in case you want to try a 60 weight pre-wound bobbin and not have to spend $60 on a box of 72. You know what I mean? So that's cool too. It's my husband's little old work thing from his garage. But yeah, 60 weights, variegated, and then you can see our huge wall of over 300 different colors of glide, and I'm adding new colors all the time. I told my husband I need a bigger quilt shop because this is not enough wall space.
Right.
And then my beautiful grunge. I love my grunge. It's a rainbow. Doesn't it just make you happy just to look at?
I love how you have the lights underneath.
Yeah, I felt a little dark. So I was like, what about some under cabinet lighting? And they don't quite give off like a white hue, so I don't love that they kind of make the thread look a little not the color that they are, but you can pull it out and see it just as easy.
You have so much. It's gorgeous. Just gorgeous. You thread nerds, this is the spot.
I love it, yeah. And Glide is relatively inexpensive. The one thing that I love about Glide as well is that it's made in America, you know?
Okay, yeah.
Military, it's one of those things where you just kind of want to support the local makers.
Right.
All kinds of fun goodies. And for those of you who shop online, this is fantastic. It's a Glide color card, but it's actual real wrapped thread samples. It's not a printed card, which gives you a good idea of what the die lots actually look like. So,
and you have the color cards, lots of them in stock.
Yes.
Great.
Again, one of those things we just always have. People need them, especially if you're shopping online. It's so difficult to tell what the true colors are, and that's nice to have because you can match it exactly with your project.
Yeah, awesome.
Yep. And of course, just pretty, you can tell, I like bright colors and like kind of the new age Tim Holtz Free Spirit fabrics. I just, you walk into my quilt shop, I guess, is kind of opposite of what normal quilt shops are, because this is like masculine fabrics, the Tim Holtz stuff, which you don't get a lot of at a lot of quilt shops. So I'm all about catering to where that gap is. Because for me, I actually love that. I'd love to finally piece a quilt with that, but who knows if I'll ever get around to it. And then we've got the 3 long arms. So we've got our Lucy, she's 10 feet. And then I've got the one that I do all of my
This is Lucy. This is an APQS machine?
Yes, she's a 26-inch throat, and she is the simple one. So she can have the switch regulator on or off, and she has a horizontal channel lock.
Great. Oh.
She also has her Quilt Path, her QP software.
Yep. Okay.
Then I've got my little baby over here. She's still a 26-inch throat, but she's on an 8-inch or an 8-foot frame. And that's where I do all of my YouTube filming. So anyone who, you know, checks out the Bold Notion Quilting YouTube channel, this is a very common thing that you're used to seeing, my backdrop.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is, where I do most of my filming.
On an 8-foot frame.
Yep. You don't need a whole lot to film a couple YouTube videos here and there.
Right.
But it's nice to just have her available when I need her to do that.
And so here's your doodling.
Well, not mine. That's
really?
that's from, I do road shows where people can come and try out the longarm quilting machines before they buy them.
Oh.
So that's what that's from. On the other side, though, you can see things that I've doodled, like that are a little more concrete with the ruler work and stuff.
Look at that.
Try, fail, repeat.
I see you do that in your videos. That's great. Very cool.
That's how I operate. Just do it.
Just do it. Yes, I saw you making these on a video not too long ago.
Yeah, and I just did one. I actually still have to load it to YouTube, but I just did one with the gnomes, and it's so adorable. I'm so excited. I don't know why. It's just cute. I'll probably never use it on anything, but for me, like, that's adorable, and if I want to, I totally can, because now I have it.
Yeah, okay.
So these are a lot of the rulers that we carry. These are the quilted pineapple rulers. I don't know if you've ever heard of them.
Yes.
I love them. They have the same degree curve on the inside as they do on the outside, so these are my go-to when I'm doing any kind of curved ruler work on anything. I do a lot of Judy Niemeyer quilts, so they have always helped me in a pinch. You always need just the right curve. And then all of these rulers down here are all rulers that are proprietary to Bold Notion Quilting that I've created. They are actually puzzle pieces to make them easy. You know how sometimes you get a ruler and it's got that 1/4-inch slit and you have to slide it onto your long arm?
Yeah.
With my previous long arm, I actually had to raise my needle to get it out. I couldn't do it with the needle down because of the way everything was sitting. So if you have to raise your needle and your machine moves, you're now not in the place that you want it to be. So I'm having to, again, adjust my quilting to suit the needs of my tools, but my tools should be suiting the needs of me. So that, and with all the different in-person classes that I've done, sit-down quilters have a bunch of weird apparatuses for their machines to put on their quilting feet, and trying to get that 1/4-inch is not going to happen, and then trying to raise their foot and get it under, you have to cut your threads.
Yes.
So this was my solution to that, and they're so versatile. Yeah. So we've got them in all different kinds of shapes, circles, hexagons. So on that Dream Big Flower you were looking at that had the chevron, not, I guess, kind of shape in the border, I utilized this ruler to do that. Over and over and over again, as opposed to changing my angle direction on my straight edge ruler to get the same look. Yeah. And this one is interesting. This one's called a retro block, so it's curved squares.
I'll be darned.
Yeah, it's a neat, cool look. I do some really cool like curved triangles and stuff and borders, but they all come apart like puzzle pieces, so you can use them. And then of course our little handled rulers, we've got our mini-me's, and we have them in right and left-handed, so that the markings are opposite.
Great.
Because when you're right hand dominant, you often drive with your right and hold with your left. So you're reading numbers from bottom to top, but if you're left hand dominant holding a right hand ruler, all your numbers and markings are backwards, which I didn't know. And people are like, make me left-hand rulers. And my brother-in-law's like, that's actually a really big problem for lefties. And he explained it to me. I was like, oh, okay. So now we have left-handed rulers, which is cool. But yeah, so we've got lots of stuff in here. And then all of these are just wonderful wide backs. We even have a wide back of the month club that we do as well, which is nice. Save 20% on 3 yards every month.
That's a deal.
We also have a thread of the month club, which I failed to mention.
What's that?
That's also 20% off, so, and it's on the first of every month. And I have a list, so I've taken all of the colors that Glide makes, except for like the really harsh neon colors that people probably won't use to quilt. But I've taken all of the colors and I've broken them down into 6 and 8 packs for mini cones, or 4 or 8 packs for the big 5,000 meter king cones. And you get a different set of colors every month, and the goal is to make sure that the colors all look nice enough together that you could put them in a quilt, right? So you're getting some good assortments and collections of colors each month, and you can start the subscription whenever you want, whether you want to get 2 packs of bobbins for your machine, or the threads, or even 2 60 weight cones, and you can start it and stop it or whenever you want.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool.
I might have to get in on that.
Yeah, if you embroider, you need all that thread, and every shade matters.
That's right. Not just for embroidery, I need it for long arming.
Yes. I use so many colors for long arming.
You use multiple colors in a quilt?
More often than not, largely because I custom quilt, so I want to make sure that I'm making everything blend as well as possible, because my goal when I'm custom quilting for a quilt is never to have my quilting overpower a piece, but to wholly complement it so that it works as like a symbiotic relationship. So I'm always trying to find that just the right color to match for the designs that I'm doing, so my quilting doesn't overpower the piecing. Nice,
yeah, that's great.
Did you get a look at Freddie?
Hold on, let's do this. Yeah, Freddie has some accoutrement up here. Look at this. Look at that. Seaside Peacemakers, Timeless Treasures 2020, first place. Look at this.
Yeah, he's...
Wow.
I'm shocked that he won any ribbons because of the way that I did his binding. I did it so lazily. But I think people just see the quilting before.
Yeah, you don't even notice that it's bound at all.
You want to hear a really funny little excerpt about this one?
Sure.
You see all my little sparkly jewels there?
Yeah.
So I initially quilted him with a black thread on the back and a cream on the top. And my tension, right where I would change directions on my swirls, was not fantastic. So that when you get that little poke and bobble of thread that would come up on the directional change.
Oh my goodness.
So those little gems are hiding a lot of those little bubbles that popped up. And you'll see that like I quilted this much of it with the black and it blends on the back.
Hold on, let me get close.
Just short of the mushroom head, and he's all black behind the mushroom. But then everywhere else, I switched to cream thread so I didn't have that problem anymore. When I was quilting him purely for my piecing, like my joy, just to do it, something creative and fun. And I'll have to send you a picture of it because there's so much down here that's, you know, even still hidden. But I wasn't expecting to put it in a show or anything, so I wasn't worried about things being perfect. But then when I decided to, I had to come up with a creative way to hide those little mistakes that I made.
Brilliant.
I even bled on him too, and it never came out totally. But luckily it's a grunge fabric, so you don't notice.
It's got blood on it.
Blood, sweat, and tears.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous. It's just a beautiful, beautiful quilt. That's great.
Thank you. He was definitely fun. I'm excited to do a class with one of those like collage applique pieces.
You said you like to do whole cloth quilts, right?
Yeah, so this essentially is that. I mean, you iron a bunch of stuff on and then you quilt it all up.
Wow. And it's just phenomenal. That is just really awesome. Where'd you get the idea for the fabrics? I mean, to make his body out of flowers.
So Laura Heine makes a lot of the collage patterns, and she has a collage pattern called Frida Fox, which is what I use to make my fox.
Okay.
But I don't like warm. I told you color is a real big deterrent for me when I creatively, I can't look at oranges and yellows. They don't they don't help me creatively.
Yeah.
No, they stump me. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna do a blue fox. And then I'm at the quilt shop trying to find like different fabrics and things to do a blue fox. And people are like, you do know your fox is gonna be blue, right? I'm like, yes, I do. And I want him to be blue. But you know, when people look at him, they're like, oh, I didn't even see the fox at first. But
I didn't either. You had called him a fox and I was like, that's a fox? And then, yeah.
You don't see it till you know sometimes. And that's a cool thing about like artful things, right? Because you can interpret them to whatever they are. My aunt for the longest time thought that this was a lady's face. And it was like, she's like, it looks like a little babushka with a hood on, you know, holding something behind her. But it's a fox and he's got a little hidden snail right in there too, on his shoulder.
That's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Well deserved. The ribbons are well deserved.
Oh, thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful work.
It's been fun. I'm hopeful to do more fun things like that.
I have not yet had an opportunity to take one of those classes, and I need to. I have a couple patterns, and I need to do them.
For the Laura Heine?
Yes.
Yeah, I think they're really cool, but I couldn't just do the straight line quilting that they do on most of them. Just they do grids and stuff. I just figured this is very Alice in Wonderland. That's what my little blue fox made me think of. It kind of makes me want to make like a blue caterpillar pattern and kind of do something a little more funky with it.
Love it.
Who knows?
Great. And who's this back here? We have another Millie.
Yes, we have another Millie. Millie's my favorite. She's got all the bells and whistles. So, you know, if I want to do anything with my custom quilting, she really comes in handy. So that's why I have two of them as opposed to a different model. I like having my 26-inch throat because I have all the space that I need to do my quilting. But she's on a 12-foot frame. So when I'm doing a lot of my computerized quilting, these two are the ones that have the computer. So Millie is the one that I use most frequently.
Okay. And then here's George.
Yes, and he is officially antique. They no longer make Georges anymore.
Okay.
So I use him, so when I teach my classes online on boldnotionquilting.com, I actually use him when I'm doing some sit-down things. So when I first started quilting on my domestic machine. So if there are things that I think are important to know, like when we talk about rulers, I sit down on George and I say, okay, here's tips for using rulers on a sit-down machine, what you can do to get around that. And he gives me a lot of space where I can film and see, so I'll always have George. He'll always be my baby. But that's mostly what I use him for, is for my online classes and giving those extra tips and quips that they need when sit-down quilters need that extra little bit of information to be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Yes, the sit-down that I had did not have a stitch regulator. And
he doesn't either.
We just couldn't get along. Yeah.
Great tip for that, put in some headphones and just pay attention to the movement of your hands and the needle. Because the sound of the machine is like, speed up, slow down, you know, what are you doing? It just feels like you're out of control. So listening to a song instead of paying attention to the speed of the machine can really help you get past the not getting along portion of your relationship.
Great advice.
Get into that honeymoon period. You'll enjoy.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
Little bit of music to set the mood.
Here's all the battings. Okay.
Yeah, it's all quilter's dream.
Okay.
I even have a cool sample here. Something that people don't really think about is how the color of your batting is going to impact your quilt. See how it's...
Yes. Look at that. You can really see it in the viewfinder on the camera.
Yep. And this is a sample from my Free Motion Quilting 101 class online, where I show you how all of these battings, you know, impact what your quilt's going to look like when you're done.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, look at the octopus up there. He's cute.
Have you ever heard of Pattern Jam?
No.
So that is a much older website. I mean, this is from like 5 years ago. That's a Pattern Jam panel. The cool thing about, I think it's called patternjam.com, but the cool thing about it is I can go on to Pattern Jam, I can pick that octopus panel, and then I can change the colors of his background, of his body, whatever, what have you, to accommodate what I want my quilt top to look like.
Nice.
So all of that was just kind of hand-picked and then sent in. The only thing that's tough for me about that panel is it's such a dense woven, like batik something.
Yeah.
When the holes go in, they're a little bit harder to get out if you mess something up and have to pick it out. But it's a super neat concept.
And did you design your logo?
I did, yes.
Yeah, so this
I don't even know what kind of quilt block that is. I was going to try to move that, but...
That's all right. So the light's in front of it, but I took pictures of it outside.
These actually are not tightened, so I can just swing them out.
That's cool. Look at those lights. Those are neat. So do those come with APQS if you order them?
So yeah, they're an upgrade that you can get with your machine, and I love them because I don't while the lighting in here is pretty good, when you're working 6 inches away on a custom quilt, it can be really helpful to have bright lights.
So that is your logo, and you just kind of came up with that block. Awesome.
I think that is a block of some kind. I just added all of the extra things around it. I know I've seen that block somewhere, and I know it has a name, but I don't know what it is.
If anybody knows, leave a comment below and tell me what the block is.
Yeah.
And you did all the quilting on it, obviously.
I did. I did that for my Free Motion Quilting 103 class, the ruler work class. So like all the different ruler designs inside of him. It was just about kind of putting it to work and making you work on a project. They're not incredibly intricate. It's a ruler work fundamental class, but that was actually designed to be like my bed quilt, which is why all of the designs are more open. So I can still have a really pretty custom quilted bed quilt, but it's not so densely quilted. I feel like, you know, I've got a rough quilt touch in my face.
It's beautiful. It is just gorgeous. I love it.
Thank you.
How do you figure out, see, that's the thing. So I'm looking at your lines up on the border, on the outer border, okay?
These?
Yes. How do you know that they're gonna fit?
I don't always know.
I don't want to hear that.
I don't. I don't. And you know what? I think that when it comes to being like a creative, like there are so many things that you can do when you're quilting that are going to impact those designs moving. So unless I pre-mark them before I go to quilt them, there's no assurance that they're exactly going to fit. But the beautiful thing is that a couple of stitch widths separate, right? Your eyeball's not going to pick up on which ones are slightly smaller and which ones are slightly bigger. Okay. So sometimes I'll get really close to the end and I'll start fudging it until it all works. You know, when I'm like 6 or 8 inches away.
Right.
So,
that's
you know,
great.
Yeah, I almost never know if it's all going to fit. I just make it work. And that's the beauty of doing it freehand, is because you can account for those things. Whereas when you're doing computerized quilting, when you have that draw up and stuff, that was the biggest thing I had to learn when I started doing the edge-to-edge quilting for others, that draw that happens when you quilt, because you don't pay attention to that when you custom quilt.
Right.
It just is something that happens and you compensate for. But when your machine is quilting and now you have to make your patterns line up just right, you notice it an awful lot. So that's something that you really kind of have to take in and learn.
It's a gift. It is a gift for sure.
It's just a lot of repetitive practice and hard work. I don't consider it a gift. I feel like it's something that I've really had to like break myself down out of and push myself into. So like I said, I've never considered myself a creative. I can't draw. I have a hard time doodling. My brain just doesn't do those things. But with a lot of practice, I've learned what things I like and what things I can continue, you know, to work on and kind of push past where I'm at. So
it's wonderful, just gorgeous.
Thank you.
Nice work. Awesome. Lauren, this has been fascinating. I love this, and I love that you've taken something that you kind of started on a whim and you've turned it into something now that you're actually teaching people, and you cater to the specific community of stitchers that there's been a void, and you've filled that. I just think that's amazing. You are an incredible young lady, and you have a brilliant, bright future ahead of you in what it is that we do. And I hope she's inspired you the way she inspires me and others.
Oh, well, thank you for taking time out of your schedule to pop by. The shop's only been here for about 8 months, but we've been online for like 4 years, so it's been great. I mean, the goal was to build something that could travel with me from station to station, as my husband's had to move and relocate. So,
and you've succeeded.
Yeah, yeah, it's been fantastic, and I love all the people who've been on this journey with me. It's been great.
So thank you so much for hosting and having me here. This has been so much fun. All right, you guys, we will talk to you soon. What do I always tell people to do?
Go sew something.
That's great.